Good morning. The Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Subcommittee on Primary Health and Retirement Security will come to order. Thank you for joining us today for the Primary Health and Retirement Subcommittee hearing, Superbugs, the Impact of Antimicrobial Resistance on Modern Medicine. Thank you especially to Ranking Member Marshall, to you and your staff's shared commitment to preparing for and preventing the antimicrobial resistance crisis in the United States. This is the type of partnership that drives results ultimately in Congress.
She's going to share why small companies are now responsible for over 95% of global novel antimicrobial development, and even then face bankruptcy in the coming years. Thank you so much for agreeing to testify and share your story. Ms. Christine Miller.
Thank you, Chairman Markey, Ranking Member Marshall, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Christine Miller. I'm President and CEO of Melinta Therapeutics. And Melinta is a small biotech providing innovative therapies to people impacted by acute and life-threatening illnesses. My story begins in New York with two amazing parents who immigrated here from Jamaica. The women in my family dedicated their careers to helping patients. My mother, a registered dietitian, worked at Montefiore Hospital. And as a child, I remember visiting her at the hospital, watching her solve patients' problems. I was inspired to pursue a career in pharmaceuticals when I realized I could use my education, like the women of my family, to help patients. This is why being here today is so important to me. I want to help identify the unmet need of patients and address the issues of availability and access to life-saving antimicrobial medicines. Antimicrobial drugs are the cornerstone of modern medicine. These drugs are critical to effectively deliver medical care for patients receiving chemotherapy, organ transplants, and patients undergoing routine surgical procedures like hip replacement and C-sections. However, bacteria and fungi are living organisms that adapt and evolve over time and become resistant to antimicrobials, a phenomenon known as antimicrobial resistance, or AMR. In the United States, AMR is the third leading cause of death behind heart disease and cancer. Things have gotten worse since the pandemic. In 2020, hospital-acquired drug-resistant infections and deaths jumped 15% as COVID erased years of progress in the fight against superbugs. While drafting my testimony, I was reminded of a story from a patient, Sue Paxton. Sue, who was a recipient of a successful liver transplant, who also found out she had a severe fungal infection when hospitalized. After multiple rounds of antifungals and further deterioration of her condition, Sue and her doctor were able to gain early access to Resifungin, a novel antifungal developed by Therapeutics that Melinta will launch later this month. Within days, Sue was on the path to recovery. Unfortunately, what happened to Sue happens all too often in hospitals. And the only way to combat these life-threatening infections is to continually innovate newer, safer antimicrobials and ensure that patients have access to these innovations. It's important to understand that we do not have an innovation problem. The U.S. government recognized the need and has taken action to support research and development needed to address resistant infections. Programs like CARB-X have done an amazing job at reinvigorating the preclinical pipeline. Also, programs through BARDA have been vital to combat AMR. Melinta is a partner in a public-private collaboration with BARDA to advance 2 FDA-approved antibiotics for use in pediatric patients and for use against biothreat pathogens. We also do not have an approval problem. Congress already enacted a policy to streamline regulatory approval for antimicrobials. Companies are getting innovative products approved, but are failing after launch. What we do have is a commercial marketplace problem that is fundamentally unique to antimicrobials, driven by reimbursement and access challenges. As a result, many biotech companies run out of money in the quest to provide patients with access to life-saving therapies. Unless we see changes to the post-approval side of the equation, the ability to bring these products to patients remain in jeopardy. The good news is that Congress and the federal government are in the position to solve this problem. Policies to increase access to new antimicrobials through reforms to antimicrobial reimbursement and novel payment mechanisms called pull incentives that decouple payment from the volume of antimicrobials used are urgently needed now. Without changes to the system, we will continue to see access challenges and further deterioration of the innovation pipeline. And patients, our family members, our neighbors will continue to die. My hope for today is that this committee views all of today's testimony as a call to action to fix the commercial marketplace. AMR remains a silent killer in hospitals every day. Every year we wait to address this crisis is another year more patients are at risk for losing their lives. Thank you for your attention to this public health crisis, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Thanks to this great panel. Now we'll turn to questions.
Thank you. And maybe what I'll also start by saying is that while AMR is an issue where sometimes we only have antibiotics and antifungals to address a few patients, what we do know is that there are a number of patients that are affected by AMR every day. They're dying from infections. They may have cancer, and maybe their loved one thinks that they're dying from cancer, but they actually die from an infection. And so this is an everyday person's problem. It's not something that's in the future to be a problem for families and our loved ones. It's a today problem for folks. So what I would definitely like for everyone to walk away from today's discussion is to really understand that AMR is a threat to us, to our society, to our medical and healthcare system, that we need to have adequate development and ongoing innovation in the space to ensure that we will be able to save patients' lives. We also need to address the commercial marketplace. This is definitely something that really needs the federal government to step in and address. We need to see reforms in reimbursement. We need to see pull incentives like the PASTOR Act be put in place so that all of the development, all the public-private partnerships that are happening today actually have a place to land and that patients can get the life-saving medicines that they need.
Okay, thank you. You're saying that the administration should name a champion.
Yes,
so
the ask is that the
person
president
has a spotlight to continue to keep this issue front and center.
Yes, sir, that's the ask.
Okay, we'll try to help you to accomplish that goal.